Thank you very much for joining our session. We're going to be discussing the power of discipline in sports and how athletes' training and engagement in sports can boost their competency in essential life skills and capabilities. We have the pleasure of having Mr. Mohamed Zemzemi, who's the president of the World Taekwondo Association and Martial Arts, trainer for the Service de Police de la Ville de Montréal, as well as we have Mr. Yves Theriault. He's Iceman, is 5 times kickboxing world champion. He is an author and jiu-jitsu as well, and kickboxing trainer. I know that their history talks more about what they have done and what they can do, but I would like to leave it as well for them to present to us more about what they've achieved in this.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for inviting me. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you, sir, for the translation or for your guests. It's very fascinating to listen to them. I wish I could speak Arabic more. But thank you for your translation anyways. Like this gentleman said, excuse me, I was a professional kickboxing and I was lucky enough to be champion. I held the championship of the world in middleweight and light heavyweight from November 15th, 1980 to December 3rd, 1994. So I was champion for a long time. Evidently that does require some commitment. I do have a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well, and I only mentioned that because I hold a school. We have a dojo, and within that school we have a lot of children. We're talking about the importance of discipline in the sport. Evidently, as a professional, you'll certainly understand that things change as we go forward. I registered in a martial arts school when I was 18 years old. And my goals at that particular time was to learn how to defend myself, as many young men, I'm sure, would. After a while, I understood the system. There's a system of belts. I started with the white belt, and then I went to the yellow belt, and I wanted to be the best yellow belt that was on the floor at the time. So I was competing with others. Only to realize that it's not really very important to compete with others at that particular point, but rather to commit myself to becoming a better next level orange belt. And so I went through that system over the course of years. And at one particular time, being a competitive person, having said that, I wanted to compete against my fellow students. I realized that I needed more. So I started doing research, and I was interested in doing some kickboxing, or some boxing, but my experiences in martial arts and in jiu-jitsu sort of led me towards kickboxing. Having said that, when my interest was peaked for kickboxing, the sport in North America was just starting, and in the Asian countries, been a long time. Thai boxing in Thailand and other countries, but in North America in 1970s, it started to become a little bit more palatable, a little bit more interesting for most who were like me, very competitive, and so I started training there, and shortly thereafter realized if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to change my whole set of thoughts, my whole set of how I think about myself and how I think about what I want to do with this. Evidently, goals change as you go forward. I was just interested in doing some kickboxing as a competitor. Over the course of years of training, I realized that this could be, and Mr. Banks talked about that earlier, that this could be a source of income for me. So I committed myself. one of the things that we certainly talk about with children at our schools, and we have many schools in the Ottawa area, is define when you come into the school. Define what are your goals. What do you want to do with this? What is the price that you are ready to pay for the commitment? You are certainly. It's very important that you commit yourself to your next goal, and the goals will change as you go forward. And so the children evidently may not realize that, but we don't preach. I try to avoid preaching, but by extension, by example, those children do learn over the course of the time that they're with us the importance of committing yourself to your next technique and your next belt and your next thing. And from there on out, some other components fall into place, like believing in yourself. Obviously, when I was first starting in martial arts, I believed in myself to the point where I can do this particular technique, and that was it. And afterwards, my belief was just continued into, maybe becoming the winner of my next competition, and then so on and so on. And I wanted to become. I realized I sit in a position where I may become champion of the Ontario, and that was my next commitment. I need to commit to that. And that was my ultimate goal, is to become champion of Ontario. And from there, obviously the goals changed. I want to become champion of Canada at one point. And I realized that when I became champion of Canada, having access to world championship was not out of my reach. Obviously, a lot of things came into play at that point. The importance of focus. How important it is to focus on the duration of my workout. If it's going to be an hour, I need to focus entirely for that hour. Focus on where I am, my spatial awareness, where I am into the, as a competitor, technically as a competitor, of course, and the quality of my performance as well. I needed to make sure that, and I was one of the few, I think, anyways, one of the few that wrote down what I did in my workouts. I did so many rounds. For today, I rated from 0 to 10. What do I rate my workout? How do I feel about it? And at the end of the week, I look at my performance and say, well, I'm missing a little bit here. I'm missing a little bit there. So my next week, so there was always a drive towards, becoming technically more sound and more confident, and that just sort of spilled into my teaching methodology when I'm with children. They certainly realize that, looking at me, and they realize, wow, that's a good kick, or that's a good punch, and I want to be like him. Well, by association, they will strive to be, better than they were yesterday. And as a result, the image that they have of themselves, they look at themselves, or they see themselves in a different light. Now they're becoming more confident. They even the shy children, and then, we're talking about children. It happens with the adults as well. They become much more outwards. We make sure to validate every child on the floor, so that it can spill into their everyday life, at home, at school, in the schoolyard. Take your place in this world. There's some of the things that we talk about as well with children, is that you have to be ready. If something happens, are you ready to jump into this, or are you hesitant to jump into the next phase of your training or what have you? There's a whole lot of things that children are affected by our behavior when we are in the dojo or in the club, the way that we conduct ourselves, the way that we welcome people into our gym, the way that we say good night at the end of the gym, at the end of the session. And my instructors are aware of that. Those are things that we talk about as instructors. We talk about our presence and the importance of our behavior relative to children and adults as well. So as a school owner, obviously it's a business, and we certainly are looking to have people talk positively about us. And one of the things as well that I talk about with children is that it's all right to be critical of yourself, as long as there's something positive that comes out of this. Self-evaluation. Sometimes I'm going to ask them, what do you think of your technique? Was it good today, or was it bad? And they generally speaking, they're honest. Sometimes they may not be, and they say, well, this is a 10 on a 10, and evidently as a coach we know that they can do better.
Helping them being self-critical is absolutely a factor, and it's a skill as well for them to accept feedback and learn how to develop. And I would like also to reflect on this with Mr. Mohamed Zemzemi, from your experience and how you grew talent within your specialty, within your field. How do you see the engagement of athletes within a disciplinary system that helps them commit to success and bring themselves forward works for you?
توجه السؤال خالد بالعربي كمان إذا سمحت.
عربي
ولا يهمك. كيف بتشوف
أو بالفرنسي إذا بتحب.
فرنسي شوي راح يطلع نص.
هو اتحاد كندي عربي ما زي عربي.
احنا حابين نشوف وجهة نظرك في أدوات العمل اللي ممكن أنت توظفها حتى تساعد الرياضيين يكونوا منضبطين أكثر وملتزمين أكثر بتطوير رياضاتهم للأمام. شو وجهة نظرك على هذا الموضوع، وكيف من خبرتك أنت عاصرته؟
شكرا جزيلا للاستضافه للجراند ماستر والاخ العزيز سامر كامل على دوره هذه، وسيرتو يعني فكره يعني طيبه كثيره للاتحاد العربي كندي، وان شاء الله يعني توفقنا فيها على القدام. انا بصراحه يعني على حسب خبرتي ويعني والوقت الكثير يعني اخذته في الرياضات يعني لزار مارسو، يعني رياضه الكومبا كلها ماهيش سهله. لازم اول حاجه يكون الانسان ثقه في النفس، والثقه مش سهله زاده. الثقه تكون يعني من نفس الاستاذ الرياضي، تكون من عند الاداره، تكون عندنا يعني دائما تكون حول الرياضي هذايا شنو هو المستقبل نتاعو. يكون الاستاذ انا حسب الفكره نتاعي، الاستاذ تكون يعني عنده مثقف كثير في البسيكولوجيا الرياضيه، مثقف فيه في الحساسيه، يعني يعرف التلميذ نتاعو اللي قدامه ايش ينجم يعني يستخرج منه. هو ما فيه ولا شيء مستحيل ولا حاجه مستحيله، فهمتني؟ انا الخبره نتاعي لما بديت الرياضه يعني كنت من الناس اللي بخاف، حتى خاف من نفسي، فهمني؟ اليوم الحمد لله يعني الثقه اللي عندي درت العالم الكله الحمد لله في اي حاجه، في اي رياضه. انا حبيت استغل فرصه، يعني احسن يعرف الرياضات الكلها الانسان باش يعرف يعني ايش يتميز في المكالمات نتاعو، في الحوار نتاعو، في الشخصيه نتاعو. خاطر كل رياضه ستو يعني رياضات لي زار مارسيو يعني مختلفين كثير فكريا وذهنيا. البدنيا حاجه خاصه، يعني كل رياضيين يستحقوا البدن يعني واثق من نفسه، الصحه الطيبه، الاكل الطيب، المداومه. ما فيش ما فيش بطل ولا واحد يعني ما غير مداومة يعني في الصحة، يعني في الرياضة وتدريب في الوقت المناسب، في النوم في الوقت المناسب، تناول يعني الأجبة بتاعه في كل لحظة، يعني بوقته، يعني كيفاش نقولوا يعني الوغ اون با لو شوا، فهمتني؟ ما عندنا ولا يعني اختيار. الخبره يكون كما قلت لكم انا يعني كنت نخاف من نفسي. اليوم وين وصلت يعني ونخرجت يعني سيرتو العرب، يعني خرجت رياضه ما شاء الله حسب الخبره نتاعي، يعني اكثر من 45 سنه في رياضه ليزار مارسيو. خرجت الدفاع، يعني دائما اخمم في الدفاع. هذه مشكله الانسان اليوم، وفي اي رياضه سيرتو رياضه يعني ليزار مارسيو مستحق الانسان الدفاع. ما فيش دفاع في الحياه اذا ما عندكش دفاع، عندكش الثقه في النفس. اذا ما عندكش القوه ما عندك ثقه في النفس. اذا ما عندكش المحبه في الرياضه ما عندكش ثقه في النفس. كلها النفس يعني تستحق الثقه في كل دقيقه وكل ساعه، يعني ما فيش هروب.
اسمح لي أترجم اللي تفضلت فيه حضرتك بملخص بسيط. Mr. Zemzemi was focusing on an important aspect that needs to be created in every athlete, which is self-confidence. And that should drive bringing the best out of them in their sport, in addition to understanding their mental state.
It's 12:30.
Their characteristics and what their goals are in life, and help them seeing those as factors for success. The commitment that they will show comes from seeing the potential in themselves and from those around them to advance their career and turn this more into not just a hobby, rather a professional path, a career path for every athlete to make it, while given that they are committed to the best practices of nutrition, training, as well as education when it comes to their specific sport. احنا الان على الوقت لهي السيشن، ولكن حابب افتح المجال اكثر للاسئله والمداخلات. تفضل حسن.
I would like to say something important, that Grandmaster Zemzemi, he created a sport called Tekebidu. It's like a martial arts. And he provided like a video of 2 minutes, if you allow us to just present it, to show everyone what he created. He created like a nice sport. It's like a self-defense and competitive mix of kickboxing and boxing and taekwondo. And he created this recently. And he has been teaching the Montreal police and now recently in Cameroon in Africa, they are taking his experience and his instructors to teach that. So if you don't mind, Cal, we can have like 2 minutes extra, and we will ask permission from the next session to do that. So
please.
Okay. So Khalid Mizit can share the screen.
Interesting techniques. I certainly am interested to learn some of those. يسلم ايديك استاذ محمد. بدون شك تقنيات جديره بانه الواحد يبدي لها اهتمام، وخاصه
انا بصراحه يعني
النفس للاطفال. تفضل.
انا بصراحه يعني هذه فرصه اللي يعطينا الاستاذ سامر كامل، يعني يلزمنا نكونوا متحدين في بعضنا. يعني الفكره كوننا يعني العرب ما شاء الله عندنا يعني نشوفوا الامثال قدامنا هنا ما شاء الله، ابطال اولمبيين، ابطال في كل حاجه نجم نوصلوا. يلزمنا بس الاتحاد والمحبه. هي الرياضه اتحاد ومحبه، ما فيش محبه، ما فيش يعني اخلاق، ما فيش شيء ما نوصلش. انا اليوم اللي حبيت نوصله بعد 46 سنه يعني في الرياضه نتاعي، حبيت اوصل يعني نقدروا نحن ما شاء الله نقدروا على اختراع اي حاجه ما شاء الله. انا بالفكره نتاعي ويعني والخبره اللي زرتها في العالم كله على الرياضه الدفاعيه، اخترت يعني اليوم قلت نخلي حاجه ورايا كما قال الاخ محمد قبيلك الهزني سلام، والاخ دكتور احمد قبيلك كيف يعني لو كان يعني واحد مرض ولا جات الوباء هذا يعني ما عاش عنده حياه، ما عاش عنده. نشوفوا البطل يعني جون ثيريو 23 مره بطل عالمي، اليوم ما فيش النوادي مسكرين، ما عندوش شغل، يعني مشكله كبيره في العالم بكله. ليش لازمنا نحضروا للمستقبل؟ المستقبل هو يعني افكارنا تتلم مع بعضينا، الاخوه، المحبه، فهمت، الاتحاد. ونشكر سامر على يعني الكلمه، يعني اتحاد عربي كندي كان نعاونوا العالم بكله، مش بس نفسك. لو كل انسان يخمم في نفسه بكره ما في ولا شيء. جزاكم الله كل خير. شكرا، ميرسي، ثانك يو.
نقطة جميلة جدا، اسمح لي أترجم. Mr. Zemzemi was focusing on the opportunity that we have now to look at what's going on in the world, to collaborate, come together and support each other. The fact that some of the gyms, some of the sports, and even having the lack of ability to even attend work for some of the sports facilities owners, and for the athletes to be in the field and active, opens our eyes to the importance of having programs to support everyone to advance how sports can continue to be a source of income, not just from an individual, rather from an individual level, but also from an industry perspective that can come together and advance this agenda. Mr. Zemzemi, Mr. Theriault, I really appreciate the time that you took to participate with us today. Great experiences that we've learned from you. Thank you for your time. أستاذ محمد زمزمي، نشكرك جزيل الشكر على مساهمتك معنا ومشاركتك الفعالة. نتمنى لك يوم سعيد. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
شكرا.
You're welcome. العفو.